Hello, my name is Nancy Hobel-Heinrich. I'm from Knowledge Motifs LLC, and along with my colleague Carl Benedict, who will introduce himself in a second, we're really excited to have you join us at the Learn at DLF 2020 presentation on exploring a data skills development gateway, the ESIP hosted data management terrain clearinghouse, as a community resource for instructors and learners. Carl?
Thanks, Nancy. And yes, I'm Carl Benedict, and I direct the Research Data Services program at the University of New Mexico Libraries. And we're here today to, again, talk about the Data Management Training Clearinghouse and the work that we've been doing to enhance the clearinghouse as a part of an IMLS-funded grant to diversify and broaden the content and bring other additional capabilities to this increasingly valuable resource for finding and accessing data management training resources across the internet. So today we're going to start out with a brief introduction to the Data Management Training Clearinghouse itself, a little bit of its history and what we have in the clearinghouse. We'll then have a quick demonstration of the current production clearinghouse and a sneak peek at the new interfaces that we have been developing on top of the brand new platform that we developed as a part of our enhancement project. And then we'll finish up with a discussion about how you can actually join in the fun of working with the Data Management Training Clearinghouse in contributing content, potentially even helping to participate in our editorial team in reviewing and documenting content. So with that, I'm going to dive right in and start with an introduction to the Data Management Training Clearinghouse. The DMTC started as a concept in 2014 as a collaborative project between the U.S. Geological Survey's Community for Data Integration, the Data One Project, and the Earth Science Information Partners, with the goal of establishing a clearinghouse where a distributed collection of research training materials scattered across the internet could be documented and curated into a one-stop shop for finding a wide array of training materials that are relevant to a diverse number of needs in terms of subject area, topic, learners. All of those are aspects of the types of information that we're recording about the content in the clearinghouse and the way that the content that is registered in the clearinghouse can be accessed. Starting in July 2019, we started a new phase in the development of the Data Management Training Clearinghouse with funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, or IMLS. As a part of that project, we were really focusing on several key areas of enhancement. First is, of course, continuing to grow the number of resources that are in the system. And as you can see on the right, we've been quite successful in that effort, essentially tripling the number of published resources in the Data Management Training Clearinghouse since the IMLS project started just over 2 years ago, where we now have just under 500 published resources and another 300 actually in our system awaiting curation and documentation and publication. But as a part of the project, we are also focused on diversifying the content. The original contributing organizations were focused on especially earth science data and information. So there was a heavy center of gravity around that type of training material when it had a disciplinary focus. We've been working hard to diversify into other disciplines and to continue to grow our collection of material that address the needs of a more diverse collection of learners. Behind the scenes, we've also been working on enhancing the documentation or metadata model for the materials in the clearinghouse, really aiming to enhance our ability to search and discover content in the clearinghouse more efficiently. We've also been developing capacity for integrating assessment of the registered resources into the system, allowing us to collect feedback from users of the training materials, whether they're instructors or learners, about the individual learning resources that are in the clearinghouse, both to present through the user interface and as a part of our search tools, but ultimately also to provide feedback to the developers of those training resources. And finally, outreach is another key activity like we're doing here, where we're reaching out, especially to the data librarian community, to increase the visibility of and the use of the Data Management Training Clearinghouse as a go-to location for finding existing data management training materials that you can use in your training or that you can repurpose for your additional work. So when I talk about increasing diversity, these are just a couple of dimensions of diversity that I'm talking about. On the right, you can see the increase of the number of items in a variety of subject categories beyond the physical sciences and mathematics category within which the earth science information content is contained. And so that's been one area where we've been very successful in broadening the collection in these other subject areas. On the left side of the graph, you can, or of the slide, you can see the growth in materials that are particularly oriented towards different target audiences, whether it's citizen scientists, data managers, researchers, publishers, repository managers. We've seen growth in many of these areas, and we're continuing to see new target audiences appearing in the system, as that has also been one of our objectives as a part of this project. We'd now like to move into some quick demonstrations of first the production system and then of our newly developed interface that is still very much under active development. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nancy to demonstrate the production system.
Thank you, Carl. Yes, what I'd like to do is show you the production system as it is right now, partly to illustrate what we've got, but also to contrast a little bit with what we'll be doing in the next iteration of the clearinghouse. So what you see is the home page of the clearinghouse. We'll be talking mostly about two functionality, the search functionality and the submit functionality. Search first. You can see that you can find searching either down below or up above as well in this area. And I just wanted to show you briefly what the search page looks like, the search results look like, and again, as a contrast to what we'll be doing. So here is the list. This is essentially the browse list. And if you scroll, you can scroll down and see all of the resources that are in the clearinghouse up to the total, as Carl mentioned, is 494 at this point. On the left-hand side are filters that are specific types of fields that will allow you to be more precise in your searching, or as a way to just begin searching as well, in addition to the quick search up on top. And then the search results themselves, this is the brief search result page, which has got the title, the media type, the licensing, the publication date, and other information such as the educational framework. If you wanted to see more, you click on that button. You can either go directly to the resource if this information is enough for you, or go to the full description itself. And this represents the metadata model and the values that are associated with it for this particular resource. So it's a pretty common way of collecting and showing this kind of information. What I wanted to do, though, was just to give you a quick idea of what you can see and what you can find in the clearinghouse. So if we were to do a search for something fairly specific, such as Python, looking for resources on Python, and hit the active search here, quick search here, we get 38 results. So the thing to note that's important about this search is that it uses a text search that includes the full description of the resource plus some of the other fields. So it's a fairly broad search. And if for instance, 38 results are too many and you want to make it more precise, you can go to the filter on the side and note that there's a keyword for Python. If you click that, then the search results are reduced to 19 instead, and then you can look at them and see if those are what you want, or you can even restrict them even more by looking at organizations, if you know them. Organizations refers to both authors and contributors and people. So authors and contributors again. Publication date is another filter, as well as license and cost. So that's one way to make the searches more precise. You can back that out if you want to, or clear the search entirely if you're not finding what you want. Just to give you another sense of it, if we were to do something a little broader, such as sharing, for data sharing, for instance, and do a search here, again, you'll see that because it's that kind of a search, we get 106 results, which is a lot. But if you were to go again to the keywords, you'll notice, aha, there's a data sharing control vocabulary for keywords itself, and that reduces us down to 42 results. So that's another way to go ahead and reduce, make the searches more precise if you're interested in doing that. And again, you can back out if you want to. So that gives you some kind of an indication of the kind of searching you can do with the existing data management training clearinghouse, both in terms of the full search and also the control vocabulary and filters. So I will hand it back to Carl to have him show you what we can do in the new system. Carl?
So I'm now going to demonstrate the very early stages of our development of a new user interface on top of the newly developed platform that we're building that was necessitated by an actual end of life for the existing software platform that the Data Management Training Clearinghouse is based on, that was going to take place just several months after the end of our project. Since we want to develop a system that can be sustained in the long run, that didn't seem like a good position to be in, to make a lot of enhancements to a system that was then going to have to be essentially redeveloped very soon after the end of the project. I'm going to start by developing a very simple and aesthetically basic interface that is the first link under this API demo of the search functionality. I'm then going to show the first stages of a styled version of that interface that we're working with the Science Gateway Community Institute as a partner in the development of the application. This is essentially our new implementation of an interface that is replicating much of the search functionality of the existing production system, but that is based on a totally new platform under the hood. And the results have been very favorable so far, where we can have a quick search, as we saw in the production system. I can enter Python or other terms that I would like to use for my search, and it then brings up the results. This quick search is against the title, the abstract, the keywords, the names of authors that are associated with the materials, and also a field that we have in the metadata for identifiers. So if there's a DOI that is known, that also is searched if it's entered in the quick search field. And just as we have in the existing system, we have these facets on the left that in the new system are actually providing a much longer list of potential facets that can be used, from which you can choose to narrow the results, so that if, again, I wanted to reduce my results to the 12 records for data analysis, I can just click on that facet and it immediately re-executes the search, and I then have the results for that. If I wanted to narrow it even further to data modeling as an additional subset, it refreshes that search, updates the facets on the left, and then shows me only those 3 items. So this is essentially the basic test interface that we use to demonstrate connectivity to the newly developed system. And but of course, this is not the end product that we want to have users interacting with. So our work with SGCI has started with the development of a styled interface that is much more like what we're accustomed to interacting with in any of the web applications that we're working with. But it has the same functionality as we saw before, where I can clear my search, and see, in this case, the 436 results that we've copied over from the production system. I can do my Python search, yielding, in this case, 27 results. I can look into my different facets. So if I wanted, the 27 items in English, or I wanted to find only the Creative Commons by no derivatives items, I could then view that single resource. So the functionality is the same, but this is the early stages of what will be the styled interface for interacting with the content in the new clearinghouse. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Nancy to close out the presentation.
So thank you, Carl. Yes, to finish out the presentation, we just wanted to give you a sense of how you might be, you could contribute to the project and might be interested in participating. There are a couple of different areas. The API needs to be tested, as you can probably tell, for both the search functionality, but also for looking at the extended metadata schema. We'd love to have people help us bang on that API for us. Also, when we were looking at a soft launch in January of this coming year, and would love to have some help with usability testing before, during, and after that soft launch. That there's always room for adding submitters and reviewers and editors to the editorial team itself. And of course, for contributing new materials that you create or reuse as well. So in terms of that submission, we wanted to just give you a sense, I just want to give you a sense of how that can be done. This is back to the main landing page again. You'll see the submit button is there, and the login screen. There are two ways of submitting. One is this easy submit way, we call it, where no login is required, and all you can have to do is drop in the title, the URL to the landing page itself, change that access cost if there's a fee associated with it, add your name and your email address so that we can contact you if we've got some sort of questions about it. And that does not require login. If you want to get more involved in it and really look at the selection criteria and the tutorial for submitting descriptions in order to use that submission form, then you would need to establish a login, which we're happy to do. The submission, the metadata scheme itself is based on the Learning Resource Metadata Initiative that's Dublin Core maintained and schema.org endorsed. And so there's always room for more in that area. We're looking for these kinds of materials, including courses, units of courses, lessons, demonstrations, simulations, learning activities such as exercises that help people learn how to use different types of skills like Python, for instance, and webinars and that sort of thing as well. So any of those kinds of resources are what we're looking for. And so finally, if you're we'll be available for discussion interaction on Tuesday, November 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at the DLF forum. And you can certainly email us if you're interested in working with us or asking questions. And then there's also a form, that SurveyMonkey form is a place where you can drop in your name and your area of interest. And we would love to hear more from you, either questions or telling us you want to play. So keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.